Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop. All the news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's the host.
Welcome to Inside Scoop Virginia. I'm Bettina Lawton. I'm your host. And tonight we are coming to you from Gerry Connolly's St. Patrick's Day Festival. I'm sure that you can hear the music and the noise and the crowd in the background. But we're using this opportunity to have little brief conversations with various of our elected officials and our candidates because they're all here tonight. And we are very lucky to be able to start the show with Delegate Ken Plum. Those of you who know Ken know he has been in the General Assembly for some time. And this year, I believe I'm right on this, Ken, you got to be the number one in your license plate. So anytime someone sees number one, it's you.
And for a number of years, I've been number one in people's hearts and minds, you know, of course.
You are, absolutely.
But this year, I ascended to the highest level of seniority, and among other things, that gives you a number one on your license plate. And they tell me for a couple dollars, I can go to Starbucks and get a cup of coffee.
Yeah, that same couple bucks that everybody else can.
Exactly.
I love that. Well, what happened down at the General Assembly this year?
Well, it was actually a very productive session for the most part. We, for example, responded to the mental health needs. We responded to mental health needs, and that came about largely because of the incident with Senator Deeds, and that was most unfortunate. But what it's going to mean is that we're going to put more money into the mental health program, and we're going to redefine how that program works so that people who are in crisis can be better accommodated. So that was very positive. The number of people have been concerned about what's been happening in our schools. Reforms over the past years have really taken away from instruction. We're revising the SOLs in a major way. We're limiting 5 tests at the elementary level, but we're putting in place a process also to take a look at the whole accountability measures in schools, and we'll move forward on that. Also, as a result of the incident with our last governor, we've made a major revisions in our ethics laws, and I'm pleased to say that they are going forward. It's going to be much more transparent, much more reporting on the part of legislators so that we'll prevent those kind of things, I trust, from happening and happening in the future.
Yeah, that was pretty shocking when that happened, and I think a lot of people sort of said, this is not the Virginia way, as they would say.
Very disturbing. It's not the Virginia way. That's not what we want to be able to, what we want to have happen. Yep.
Now, you all are not actually done. You've got to go back for the budget. Yep. What's the big issue there?
Yeah, and it is a big issue because we haven't actually adopted our budget for the biennium, which we would normally do this session. And that's true because the 20% of our budget is related to Medicaid costs. We have an opportunity now under the Affordable Care Act to make a major expansion in our Medicaid program to serve to 250,000 people who are not now insured. There are 1 million uninsured Virginians already, but with the Affordable Care Act, some people sarcastically refer to it as the Obamacare if they're opposing it. It would take care of 250,000 of our working poor people who need health insurance. There's been major opposition on the other side to moving forward on that. But as we go back, I hope after the couple of weeks that people have had at home where they talk to their constituents, primarily business people, because, you know, business people are paying the taxes that support this. They're already paying the taxes. And, you know, we're giving up $5 million a day.
Well, that's what I don't understand. We're paying it anyway.
Right.
So why... We ought to get it back to help those people that are uninsured. And it appears, from what I'm reading in the paper, and, you know, you never know, that a lot of the hospitals are really in favor of this Medicaid expansion because they need it to stay solvent.
Yeah, no question about it. And I can't answer your question because you and I are in agreement that it makes this logical sense to do this.
All right.
But I will tell you it's primarily an ideological thing. People who on the other side make it a partisan issue, don't want the president to have a success. They want to get rid of Obamacare altogether. But what happened, you know, is that part of financing Medicaid was to reduce some of the reimbursement to hospitals on the part of Medicare. Well, if you don't replace that with Medicaid, you leave your hospitals in a precarious financial position. Some of them, in fact, one in Southwest Virginia has already closed, and there will be others that will close if we don't move forward on this. I hope the good sense of the business community, and incidentally, all the major Chamber of Commerces, including the Virginia Chamber of Commerce, clearly the Fairfax County Chamber of Commerce as well, has said, let's do this. Business people are paying the taxes. We have working Virginians who need health insurance, who now, they don't not get sick because we don't have this program.
Right.
They go to the the emergency room where the cost is much more expensive, and this would make much more sense to give them preventative care, regular checkups, much more affordable care. That would contribute to the marketplace. And the other thing is the projections are that the implementation of this plan would create more than 25,000 jobs for Virginians who would work in it.
So medical coverage, job creation, it sounds like something they ought to be doing. Well, we'll find out. You go back in a couple of weeks, right?
We go back next week, as a matter
Okay.
of fact, and we'll be working hard on this. And I encourage people who are watching, who are represented by a Republican delegate or senator, to call up that person and say, let's close the coverage gap. Let's extend health insurance to the 250,000 Virginians who are needing it.
Well, let's hope that everybody does that who's listening. Call. It makes a whole lot of sense. The Republicans usually listen to the business community, so maybe they ought to do that now. Ken, I want to thank you so much for coming on and leading us off tonight, and I'll let you go back to the festival and enjoy yourself.
Dana, thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
I want to welcome to the show Town Council member Sheila Olam. She is from Herndon, and she is running for re-election this May. What's the date of your Town Council election, Sheila?
May 6th, Tuesday,
All right.
May 6th.
May 6th. So you all need to go out and vote in the Herndon Town Council election. Now, Sheila, you're all decked out in your festive green for the Gerry Connolly event. But let's talk about Herndon politics, because you all were kind of the laughingstock a number of years ago with the militiamen who were there. There was a whole big immigration thing. Is the town still that way, or has it changed?
No, I think that was a pretty small group of people, but they got organized. And for the past 20 months, since Mayor Lisa has been the mayor, and I'm serving my second term, we have made so much progress on the downtown development, the metro planning. We've got little tables with umbrella out on the old town hall green, which is right in the W&OD trail. So things are really positive, and be watching, because the first section of the W&OD trail to be lit is coming to Herndon. That is getting underway.
So when can we expect to see that?
I believe they're going to be starting on it. Well, today's the 17th and it snowed. Well, if it'll quit snowing. So they're supposed to start this spring, but considering the weather we've been having.
That's right. The spring doesn't seem to be coming anytime soon.
I don't want to give a date, because with this weather, it's kind of up in the air.
Up and down,
Yeah.
up and down. Well, what are the big issues facing people in Herndon, and why should they be voting for you? And I know you've got an entire team that you're working with. So what are the big issues?
Working on downtown development and encouraging businesses to come in and put their businesses in Herndon. We do have some vacant properties that could be developed. Letting the developers know what we will let them build is very important. The last big development that came to Herndon was a hotel. Not a huge hotel, but they strung him along. This is the previous council for 18, 20 months.
Well, you
and
can't
told
really
him-
do that.
Yeah, and then told him they didn't like the plan, so he had to go back. Well, that was 2008, and all of a sudden the financing dried up. So, these individuals, just because they own a company, they're just like us. If you were planning to build a house and it took 3 years, you would kind of get frustrated and pack up and go somewhere else.
So have you streamlined the process in the town so that people who are looking to develop parcels now have a better sense of what to expect? Is that sort of where you all have gone? Because you've been now, it's been a couple of years because you've been reelected once. So is that one of the things that the town council has done?
Well, we had started this process when I got in on my first term, but we really didn't have the votes to take a lot of the political persuasion out of development. We need to lay down the rules. Like Columbia Pike, they came up with how they wanted things developed. They put it on paper, And when developers came in, they didn't have to go deal with the elected officials.
Right.
Because things get too political. You need to have it lined out as a plan. This is really what we want. And then let our staff administer that. So that's what we've been headed towards.
Okay. And so what is the going forward? What's the big issue that you say to folks, this is why the current council needs to be reelected? This is why the people on your team need to be reelected. Is it to continue that progress, or are there other major issues?
Well, to continue that progress and also to continue work on the planning for the redevelopment around the metro area. Also, with all the development going on in Loudoun County, and Reston is pretty developed, Herndon is going to have traffic. And as they start growing in Loudoun and driving through our town, because maybe they go to work in Reston, or maybe they live in Reston and they're working in Loudoun. We're not an island. So as these, as the traffic grows over the years, we do have to have plans. And we just put out another, I guess you could say, Band-Aid, because we know that this isn't a fix that's going to last 20 years. But to have a 20-year fix, you have to start planning in advance so that you can seek matching funds from the state. And if you're not doing any of that planning, then you look up, you want to put a road in, but you have no funding.
Right.
Yeah, so
Exactly.
it's long-term planning.
All right. Well, it sounds like a good thing for the town council to be doing. May 6th is the election. Make sure that you get out and vote if you are in the Herndon precincts. Sheila Olam has been my guest. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Bettina, for having me on.
All right. I want to welcome to the show Senator Chap Peterson. Chap represents Fairfax City and some surrounding areas in Fairfax County. We, again, you can tell from Chap's attire, are at the Irish event with Gerry Connolly. So, Chap, you're back from the session. What did you get accomplished? I know you had some bills you were really interested in, something to do with pets that actually passed. What was that about?
We had a bill we passed called Bailey's Law that was very significant. It gives a right of action for people that buy a pet that's sick or diseased, and it'll allow you either to return the pet or, even better, keep the pet and basically get a refund of the purchase price, which you can then apply to veterinarian's fees. And that was very critical because a lot of people, when they buy a sick or diseased pet, they don't want to return it, Bettina, because the pet will be euthanized. They want to see if it can be treated. And so this way they'll actually get their money back, but they'll be able to keep the pet and put the money towards vet fees. So that was a bill that the Humane Society asked me to carry, and I'm very proud that we got it passed without a single no vote in the House or the Senate.
Wow, that's pretty actually amazing for that.
It is, and I was kind of stunned myself because I had told them don't be so ambitious, and yet we were able to get this bill passed. And there was a lot of great lobbying done by the Humane Society, and I pulled a couple chits that I owed, and so. Anyways, we got it done, so proud of that.
And this is for people who buy from, like, pet stores, because I've always been told you'd never buy from pet stores for that very reason.
Right. Well, this is for people that buy from retail pet stores.
Okay.
And again, retail pet stores under this law will now have to identify the breeder. So just like you buy any product, they'll have to identify the breeder. And secondly, again, if the pet is sick or diseased, you have the right to either take the pet back and get your money back, or keep the pet and get that purchase price back and use it to pay the vet fees.
Excellent. So what else?
you.
What else were you real proud of? I think that's a great law, but what else is there?
I finally, after 6 years of trying, got my solar freedom bill passed. And this is a bill that we had worked on for years. And basically, if you live in a homeowners association, that HOA cannot prohibit you from having solar panels or installing solar energy on your house. And that had been a major impediment to the solar industry in Virginia. That a lot of HOAs and condo associations said no solar. And so getting that passed was a huge victory. And again, we finally got it done this year. We had a bipartisan team, people working on it, and got it done.
Now, were the objections sort of the aesthetics of having solar panels? I mean, why would HOAs
Well, there's
not
a
want
lot
that?
of reasons. And one is the HOA bylaws oftentimes are created back in the 1970s and 1980s, and they would say no solar. And it's very hard to update bylaws sometimes.
Right.
You need to have 75% of the owners participate in a meeting. And so as a result, you're stuck with the old bylaws. from the 1970s, and those say no solar panels back when the technology was very, very outdated. And now that it's been updated, it's a much different product. So again, we were able to get really a bipartisan coalition of people that said it's both a solar energy efficiency issue, and also it's a property rights issue. You own the house, your house. As long as it's not an infringement on your neighbors, why shouldn't you be able to use that?
Well, let me ask you then, because there was that other, and I don't know whatever happened to it. There was that other HOA bill granting them authority to issue fines and all kinds. What happened with that?
We hammered that pretty hard in conference, and basically took out all what I call the noxious provisions.
Okay.
We took out all the provisions that would allow an HOA to fine a member when their charter doesn't give them that power.
Okay.
Think of an HOA as a local government, and that is they only have the powers that's designated by their charter. So if the charter doesn't have the power, then the HOA shouldn't have the power. And the bill had basically given an HOA almost superpowers.
Right, that's what I read.
And it was very disturbing to a lot of us. And, I know a lot of HOAs say, well, we have recalcitrant people that won't mow their grass. But I'm like, listen, we all live in communities. And, again, people own their homes. And if you're going to sort of be a super police over them, your own charter has to give you that power. I'm not going to give it to you.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I was a little troubled by it because I know there were all kinds of cases in the last couple of years about HOAs saying, no, you can't have political signs or you can't have this or that. So when I saw that initial bill come through, I thought, oh, somebody needs to stop this. So I am glad that you hammered it.
I was your man.
I am so. You are always my man, Chap, on these kind of things. That is terrific. So what's coming up? I know that you got to go back. You got budget issues.
Got the budget. Got Medicaid. Got what we call the Marketplace Virginia, which is our plan, which basically takes the $2.2 billion has been designated by the federal government for Obamacare, and basically passes it through our insurance companies in Virginia to pay down premiums for people that are eligible. So we'll have about 200,000 working Virginians that are eligible. They work. They don't qualify for Medicaid because they make too much money. But by the same token, they don't make enough money to buy their own private insurance, which is over $6,000 per family. So, you're making $20,000 a year. You can't afford that.
Right.
So Marketplace Virginia will basically pass through that money to pay down those premiums and allow those folks to have insurance for their family.
Now,
sounds like a great idea.
It sounds like a great idea. And the Senate passed that, right? Isn't the problem the House of Delegates?
The problem, as many as times as it is before, is the House of Delegates. And it's a pushback. I think they think, oh, this is expansion of Obamacare, expansion of Medicaid. And, I understand, but the problem is that battle was already fought.
Right.
It's kind of like refighting the Civil War, which some of my ancestors chose, to intellectually do occasionally. The battle's been fought. Right. And now it's a question of serving our taxpayers and serving our citizens, and that's clearly the best thing to do.
All right, well, good luck with that. I hope you have as much with that as you did with the puppies and the homeowners.
Well, exactly. I will do my best.
All right, thanks, Chap.
Yep.
Bye-bye. My next guest tonight is Supervisor John Faust. For those of you who have been paying attention, you know that Supervisor Faust is running in the 10th Congressional District for an open seat, because Frank Wolf, who has held that seat for 30-some-odd years, decided to retire. So John is the Democratic candidate. The competition dropped out. You scared them off. And so now John is the only candidate. And so welcome to the show.
Thank you, Patina. It's so nice to be here.
So I want to know, I could ask you all kinds of questions about the Board of Supervisors, but really I want to know about the 10th and your race for the seat. Why did you decide to do this to begin with? You've got Board of Supervisors is a big job. You'll be one of 435 people in Congress. So what made you decide to do it?
Well, anybody who knows me knows I love being on the Board of Supervisors.
You do?
It's a great job. We do get a lot done in Fairfax County. But I just thought that the direction our country's going in was not one that I was satisfied with. I felt that we needed new people in Washington. And I hope that I have something to offer that'll, make things better.
Well, you're not usually we run people who have never held elected office for this position, and they get their standard 1/3 of the vote. So as an elected official, you know how to do it. You've run it before. So is that going to be the big advantage in this race for you?
It's going to be a huge advantage. The the big difference this time between this time and all the other previous elections is that there's no incumbent.
Right.
It's an open seat, and I do have, I think, a strong base and a record that I'm very, very proud of as a member of the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors that I can run on.
So what are going to be the issues in the 10th Congressional District?
Well, I think investing in transportation is critical, and I think it's very likely that the Republican nominee will have voted against the transportation bill in Richmond, and I think people are going to be, I think that's disappointing. The one thing that really this area lacks is a good transportation network, and being unable to come together on a bipartisan basis to support a transportation bill, I think says a lot about the candidates they're putting up. I think there's other issues that are really critical. I'm very focused on education. I believe that the federal government has a role to play in early childhood education. I think we need to make college more affordable, and I think federal government should be partner in that effort. The environment is critical. I can't accept those who are still denying climate change. I believe it's for real. I know it's for real.
Right.
And I view it as, a challenge, but also an opportunity. I think the challenge is that we've got to do something about it, or the way of life that we want and expect is going to change.
Right.
And it's not going to change for the better.
Right.
But it also is an opportunity because there's so many new technologies and industries that are going to arise over the coming decades to deal with climate change. And they're either going to arise in the United States or they're going to arise somewhere else. But they are going to arise. And so we as a nation should get behind it, invest in it, and make it happen here so we can have good 21st century innovative economy jobs here in the United States.
I think a lot of people don't realize that if we got behind the whole climate change and the environmental issues that you also mentioned, that's a job issue as well. It's not just some sort of tree hugger type of issue to deal with. That's a jobs issue.
That's right. The alternative fuels industries, the green technologies, offer so much potential going forward for good jobs that we want to have here in the United States. We want to be developing and manufacturing and delivering that technology. We don't want to be buying it from other countries, and that's what's going to happen if we don't take the lead. So I'm excited about it. I think something we can really focus on and make a difference in. I think other issues that will be important. I think a woman's right to make her own health care decisions is something that we've got to get behind. We've got to stop the battles and just recognize that the government should not be telling women how to make their health care decisions. And so I'm excited about going to Congress, working with great congressmen like Gerry Connolly, and a lot of other good Congress people that I believe really want to do the right thing. We've been stymied in Washington by dysfunction, by partisanship. I think in Fairfax, we've demonstrated that we know how to get things done by using common sense, by using bringing people together, trying to apply values that everyone will benefit, and not just one party or the other party.
Right.
And so I'm excited. I think the opportunities are there. I think our future is bright if we make the right investments and make the right decisions.
Well, I want to thank you for coming. You do have a lot of experience on working across the aisle and getting things done, and so go for it, and I hope that in November we'll be having a victory party for you.
I thank you very much.
Thanks, John.
And good night to everyone. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
I want to welcome our next guest. It is Ambassador Don Beyer. Don is running in a primary to replace Congressman Jim Moran in the 8th Congressional District. So I want to welcome you to the show. This is your maiden interview.
Thank you, Bettina.
I look forward to having you again in the studio for a longer one. But I wanted to find out, why are you doing this? I mean, you had an illustrious career. You were in Virginia state government, and then you became an ambassador to Switzerland, and you want to go to Congress. It's not known for functioning well. So why do you want to do that?
That's at least part of the reason, is I want to go try to make it better.
Okay.
When we see the dysfunction in the last couple of years, my first reaction has been anger, and the second reaction has been despair. And then I remember that we're put here to try to make things better and change things. So, I come from a family of public servants going back generations, and I have wanted to do public service all of my adult life. Sometimes I've been able to win elections to do it. Sometimes I've been involuntarily retired. And even the time between the 8 years as lieutenant governor and the opportunity to go to Switzerland, I spent all those years still trying to do public service, leading nonprofits or working on the campaigns of Howard Dean, John Kerry, Mark Warner, and Barack Obama.
Excellent. Well, so what do you want to do? I mean, this is a huge primary. There, depending on the day, you have 10, 11, 12 people who are in this
I think it's
primary.
12 today.
Yeah, I thought so too. I heard over the weekend someone else showed up. I was like, good Lord, coming out of the woodwork here. So, assuming you make it all the way through the primary, so what do you want to do? Are there particular issues that you want to tackle when you get into Congress?
We have both national issues and local issues. On a national basis, what drives me most, what comes most from my heart, is trying to fight climate change. I'm really worried about it. I first got into politics more than 30 years ago because of my concern about nuclear weapons. In the meantime, we've made enormous progress. From 10,000 nuclear weapons to 1,800, 1,600 in the United States. Not all the way, but progress. On the other hand, the last 10 warmest years on record have been since 1998. And we are seeing the consequences of global warming in so many different places in this world. Droughts, extreme storms, coastal surge, and we're leading to a point where we're going to really mass migrations and tens or hundreds of millions of deaths. We have to act. Now, there are local issues that are very important too. I mean, I will be representing an enormous number of federal employees who have been just treated so badly. We haven't had a raise in 3 years. Sequester and the shutdown have really hurt people. The president has a 1% raise, but that's not enough to keep up with anything.
Right.
So I really want to be a champion for federal employees.
Well, and the sequester really did affect people in your district immensely. I mean, the whole northern Virginia and certain other parts of Virginia, but that should be a major issue this fall.
And it's the abdication of responsibility by government to choose how best to spend it, instead of just doing this formula that takes no account of what our priorities should be. Just tonight, I talked to yet another man here who lost his job because of sequester and is about to run out of his savings. And I hear that story 2 or 3 times every day.
Wow. It is devastating for people to have to go through that. And for the people who, as you say, they still have their jobs in the federal government, but as prices have been going up, their salaries have been frozen. So that's a huge issue as well.
And one of the issues is economic, but the other is just self-respect.
Right.
What does it tell you when your government tells you you're not worth anymore or you're worth less year after year, and we can shut you down or sequester you?
Right.
The federal I was a federal government employee the last 4 years in Switzerland.
Right, that's true.
And even though I was a non-career, political appointment, I was surrounded by really terrific federal employees. Some of them will be my friends, I hope my friends for life. And I came to respect them and how hard they worked, what great public servants they were. And we just don't treat them very well.
No. I think people are sort of stuck in this old, phrase, the good enough for government work, as if these people are not really talented.
Which is so unfair.
It's terribly unfair. It's terribly unfair.
I've been running a business for 40 years, so I see the private sector side, and I love the people I work with, but I would never say that they were better, smarter, worked harder than the federal government employees I worked with.
Right. Well, it's going to be very interesting. You've got, now when is the voting? The voting's in June, right?
June 10th. It's 12 weeks from tomorrow.
Okay, so you've got 12 weeks to make your case to everybody, and we'll see if there are still 12 people.
Yeah, well,
and what happens?
And I hope there are. I think, it's 24 years since the seat last changed hands, and it's a safe Democratic seat.
That's true.
So, God bless everybody. They're all good Democrats.
Right. Well, we
They're all
do
people
have
running
a
for the right
wealth
reasons,
of wonderful people running for that seat, which is great.
I mean, it makes it easier and more fun to run, too.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad you were able to stop by, and congratulations,
Thank
and
you,
good
Bettina.
luck as you move
Thank
forward.
you very much.
All righty. Thanks, Don.
Okay.
I want to welcome my next guest. He is a new politician. Rick Nagel is running for the Herndon Town Council. This is your first race for elected official?
It is.
All right, so tell us who you are, Rick. I know you've got some background in public safety. What have you done there?
Right. Like Bettina said, my name's Rick Nagel. I've lived in Herndon since 2008. I'm a former police officer and a former Virginia magistrate. So that's my public safety background. Public service has been a cornerstone of my life for the past probably 17 years.
So you're relatively new in Herndon, 2008. What made you decide that you wanted to run for the town council?
Well, like they say, timing is everything in politics, and I was able to get my son out of high school and into college, and I have, as everyone can imagine, a lot of free time on my hands now. It's something I've always wanted to do, and the time was right.
Okay, so what are your big issues in the race that you're running?
Well, I think, Metro has already been approved. I think bringing Metro all the way through to Herndon and building out the Monroe Street station is very important. Economic development is another issue that I'm looking at. I think we need more businesses to come into Herndon, which could increase the tax base.
Okay, now what about you've got the Metro coming in, and I've been in and out of Herndon, and so far the traffic looks like it's okay, but is that going to be a big issue for your town council going forward to try and assimilate new development plus Metro in what is kind of a very tight-knit, you can't expand those streets because you've got businesses right on top of them?
Yeah, that's right. Some of the traffic issues are on the agenda. They've been dealt with. Drainsville Road, I believe Herndon Parkway. There's some areas there that could be looked at. There's a master plan that's put in place. Some of that has been addressed as well. Traffic. There's always both sides of issues, and I'm out knocking on doors every weekend, talking to voters, and that is a concern with some of the voters. And when elected, I will definitely address that.
So what are you hearing at the doors? You're out knocking, talking to folks, introducing yourself. Are there issues that you hear over and over that folks are saying, here's what concerns me, this is my issue?
Yeah. This weekend I was out knocking on doors, and probably the top few issues, or the top two or three, I should say, I've been hearing is, of course, traffic. They want not a lot of congestion. They don't want Herndon as a cut-through from some of the other areas. Snow removal, believe it or not, on a day like today.
That would be a big issue.
Right. I had a few voters talk to me about that. And, of course, keeping taxes low. Keeping a budget balanced while keeping services high. That was another issue as well.
That tends to be a little tough. People always want more services but not pay more taxes.
True. And I think the key is in Herndon, you could probably keep the budget balanced and keep the services high like it's been done. So I don't see why, if elected, I couldn't do the same thing.
Okay. Now, what is it about Herndon? Because people tell me it's a great place to live. You obviously moved there recently. So what's so great about it?
Well, I love the community feeling. It's that small town. The way I describe it is a small town within a big city because you're so close to D.C. And the architecture, I love. The older structures and so forth. That's really my take on it, of why I like Herndon. And it's just a good. There's good people there. It's a good family, business type community that I love being a part of.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for coming by, and good luck. It's May 6th, right?
May 6th, Herndon Community Center, 6 a.m. to 7 p.m., and I encourage everyone to come out and vote.
And how can people get a hold of you? Are you all having events where people can come and meet you, or is there a website that people should go to find out more about you?
Right. We do have events. I do have a website. It's ricknagelfortowncouncil.com, so anyone should feel free to go to my website, and my a little bit of my background's on there and some positions and things like that, so I encourage everyone to do that.
Well, excellent. Well, good luck. Good luck on May 6th.
All right. Thank you, Bettina.
All right, thanks.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye.
I want to welcome to the show Mayor Bill Ewell. He is the mayor of Alexandria, and he is one of the candidates running in the Democratic primary in the 8th Congressional District. This is his first time on the show, so welcome very much, Mayor. It's great to have you on.
Glad to have the invitation.
Well, I will say, and we were talking about this just a bit ago, that you were supposed to come on the show a couple weeks ago, and it snowed.
It did, and it snowed again last night and
Exactly.
this morning. And I said, you know what? It's St. Patrick's Day, so the luck of the Irish, we're going to be here regardless.
Absolutely.
And we are.
Absolutely. So tell me, how long have you been the mayor of Alexandria?
I have been the mayor of Alexandria since 2003. I was elected first time in 2003 as the first African-American mayor of the city, and the city was 254 years old at that time, and then successfully re-elected 3 additional times.
Oh, that's amazing. I had not realized that you were the first African-American mayor. That is kind of amazing, given the history of Alexandria, and it took us that long. So congratulations.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So you've been the mayor of Alexandria. Why do you want to go to Congress?
Well, my life is about service, helping to make a difference in the lives of many people. I started committing myself and doing things in terms of community service, both not only in a political level but nonprofit sector at the age of 24. I sought appointment to the Alexandria City School Board 2 years out of college because I was concerned about that very public school system that educated me and thousands of other young people before me, and the direction it was heading. And so I said, I want to help make a difference. I want to right this ship. So I got appointed to the school board, did it for 10 long years. After the school board, I started a business, then 94 elected to the city council for 3 terms, and then mayor since 2003. So I have a long committed political career in terms of giving back and making a difference. But in addition to that, I want to go to Congress simply because mayors are the ones that, in terms of cities and towns where rubber hits the road, we make a difference. We deal with constituent services daily. And I recall that Congressman Jim Moran, whose seat I'm running for, was the mayor of Alexandria for 9 years before he went to Congress. My colleague Gerry Connolly was the chairman of the Board of Supervisors of Fairfax for many years, as well as a county board supervisor member, and so we have the ability, the knowledge, the skill to what it takes to be in Congress.
Well, and I have heard that from other people who are local government officials who say you need more, whether it's at the state level, whether it's at the national level, because as you so aptly put it, that's where the rubber meets the road.
Precisely.
You can do all the kinds of legislation in Congress, but you're not the one who has to implement it. It's the mayors who do.
It's all about constituent service, and I do that daily, have been for more than 20 years on our local city council. In addition to that, I'm involved in everything regional in Northern Virginia, from the Metro Transit Board of Directors, the Council of Governments, the Northern Virginia Regional Commission. So all those regional bodies in terms of regionalism are important to the Congressional 8th District in terms of the environment, infrastructure, transportation, affordable housing, education. I'm the one candidate that has been doing and engaged in all of these for more than 30 years.
Well, how much do you know of the rest of the district? Because there's Arlington is part of it, of course, Alexandria. But I read somewhere that Fairfax County itself is like 40% of your district.
There's
so
the area that's just adjacent to the 495 Beltway, which is Springfield. That sector going all the way down to the Route 1 corridor south, including all of Mount Vernon, that is all part of the district as well. And the beauty about that is that, as the mayor of Alexandria, a lot of the folks in that corridor, that section of southern part of Fairfax County, because they have an Alexandria mailing address, postal address, they actually think they're part of my city already anyway. Right. They spend a lot of time in the city. They come to City Hall inadvertently to pay their taxes and so forth. And they know me because they see my face not only on television, but in the newspaper. But again, because of my commitment to regionalism, I'm dealing with all of those same issues, not only for what benefits Alexandria, but Arlington and Fairfax Falls Church as well.
Well, now, in our last couple of seconds here, where can people find out more about you? Do you have a website, events that you want to tell folks about?
Yes, I do. My website is Ewell, EUILLE, for Congress.com. And my reason for running for this position is experience, it's leadership, it's a proven track record. Just look at my city of Alexandria, all the wonderful things that we've done, and I'm blessed and pleased that we can share those best practices throughout the region, and it's about regionalism.
All right, well, excellent. Well, good luck. I know it is June 12th?
June 10th is the primary.
June
Yes.
10th. Go out and vote June 10th. Thank you so much
All
for
right.
coming, Mayor. I'm
Glad
so
to be
glad
with
we
you.
finally were able to do it.
All right.
I want to welcome my next guest tonight. It is Delegate Alfonso Lopez. He is a member of the General Assembly. So we're going to do two things here because he's also running in the 8th Congressional District. But first, Alfonso, I want to find out, what did you think of this session?
Well, I think we can do a lot better. I think we can always do a lot better when we're down in Richmond with the House of Delegates as it stands right now. Besides not passing a budget, besides not having the kind of priorities that Democrats need and want, and besides not getting Medicaid expansion passed, I was very proud of the fact as a freshman that I helped, my legislation created the first affordable housing trust fund in Virginia. We got $8 million in my first 2 years in the General Assembly. They zeroed out funding for affordable housing trust fund this year. It's not in the budget as it stands right now.
Wow.
I thought, before I got in the House of Delegates, the DREAM Act, something I care deeply
Right.
about, never got out of subcommittee in the House side. My second year, when I had a year to work on it, we got it passed unanimously out of the subcommittee, and then 17-4 out of the full education committee. And they killed it with 18 hours to go before going to crossover, with that because they didn't want to vote on the floor. They did it again this year. We got it unanimously again this year out of the subcommittee. We got it 19-3 out of the full committee, and they had a week and a half to deal with it in the appropriations committee, where they
Right.
sent it to be killed. They wouldn't even give it a hearing. So let me just tell you, demographics in this state are changing rapidly. And the fact is that not addressing immigration issues, not addressing the DREAM Act, not addressing things that are both economically and morally right for the Commonwealth of Virginia, I think that's offensive. And I'm going to tell you, we can always be doing better in Richmond. We can always be doing better.
Well, it has to be very frustrating, I would imagine, to be in the House of Delegates because the Democrats are in such a minority. So getting it actually out of the subcommittee and the committee by those votes is pretty amazing.
Well, what I've been doing for the last 20 plus years is doing legislative policy. I've been working before Congress. As you know, I was the head of congressional and federal affairs for Virginia for 4 years under Governor Kane. Before that, I worked in the Clinton White House, the Obama White House. I was the head of legislative and congressional affairs as the assistant administrator of the Small Business Administration in President Obama's White House. And I was working with both sides of the aisle. I'm very proud of the fact that in my 3 years in the House of Delegates, I've gotten over 13 bills passed. In the deepest minority that the Democrats have been in several generations. In fact, I think ever.
Right. It is
I've
pretty
been able
abysmal.
to work across the aisle, and I don't care who gets credit. As long as it's a good idea, I will give my bill to a Republican and become the chief co-patron of my own bill, knowing that that's an easier way to get the bill passed. I will do it, and that's what I've always done. I find a way to get to yes. And I've done it in Congress, with working before Congress, and I've done it while as a member of the House of Delegates, and I'll keep doing it every day while I'm a member of Congress representing the 8th.
So you would go, as you put it, a deep minority at the House of Delegates. Now you want to go to Congress, where we're also in the minority.
Right.
Why do you want to go to Congress for the 8th Congressional District?
Well, I got to tell you, I've spent my whole life, even while I was in high school, studying and just drinking up the history of the legislative process in the United States. And literally, I tell a silly story. When the Metro first got built, I used to get dressed, when I was 14 years old, I get dressed up as a page, and I'd go to the Capitol South, from Vienna to Capitol South. I get off of Capitol South, walk into the Longworth House office building, go into the bins in the basement, grab a stack of papers, dressed up like a page. I was a big geek. And I would literally walk the halls of Congress with a furrowed brow. And there was no security back then. And I would literally drink it all in. I loved the Capitol. I loved the legislative process. I've loved it my entire life. The opportunity to represent the community I love, my neighbors, my friends in Congress, and I believe with my background and my 20 plus years experience literally working before Congress, we all have experience from Ambassador Beyer to being in the state Senate or being in the state House, but working before Congress and being effective, I would stack my experience up against everyone else's.
So what are your big issues in Congress? What do you want to address when you get there?
Actually, several. But the biggest for me is my background's in environmental law, and I worked in the Council on Environmental Quality. And I actually worked after I left, right after law school. I was one of the lobbyists for the environmental community, working on the National Ombudsman Air Quality Standards, the Clean Air Act reauthorization, the Safe Drinking Water Act reauthorization, the Kyoto Protocol with climate change.
Okay.
I worked for 3 years as a policy advisor on energy and environment issues to a U.S. Senator. And so I've really been in the weeds on environmental policy for a very long time, not unlike what Jim Moran has been doing for several years. Beyond that, though, affordable housing and immigration.
Okay.
These are issues that are critical to our community, and especially in Northern Virginia. And these are things that I will focus like a laser on.
Well, good luck. I know your election is
June 10th.
June 10th. I keep thinking it's 12th, but it's June 10th.
Please check out alfonsolopez.org, and please support our campaign.
All right. Well, thank you so much for stopping by, Alfonso.
Thank you, Bettina.
Chit Chat. I want to welcome Delegate Bob Brink to the show. And for once, we have a delegate who isn't running for Congress, so we are going to talk to Bob about what he thought happened down in the General Assembly and what he thinks needs to happen in the future. So welcome to the show, and I appreciate you being here. So you were down there in the General Assembly. You're on a brief little break before you go back.
That's right.
What did you think you got accomplished when you were down there?
We did get some things accomplished. We had a second look at some of the education reforms that we passed last year for K through 12 education, and we fine-tuned several of those items, which I think is very important. We did take some meaningful steps toward SOL reform because everybody pretty much had come to consensus, Democrats and Republicans alike, that the SOL process is not a good kind of process to really teach kids. There also was a provision that we passed last year on grading schools by A to F.
Right.
And it was a consensus that this process needs to be fine-tuned, and so we pushed that off for a couple of years.
So how is it that, because I recall last year that school grading system thing being put in place, how did it go from being this great idea last year to this year being deferred off? What was the difference?
Well, I think the difference was it's one of these things that sounds good on paper until you get into the details, which is where the devil is, as you know.
Exactly.
And once that happened, and once we got more complete feedback from local schools on how it would operate, once we had a longer range view of what the effect would be of labeling a school F, even though they're trying to improve, once that happened, we said, let's take another look at this.
So do you think it's going to come back next year, or do you think it's going to be dead?
I think that we'll take a look at it over the next year. One of the big changes, frankly, is the election of a new governor who wanted to take a fresh look at it because he's got some really strong ideas about what education should do and the role that education should play in training the workforce and improving our economy. And so he wants to take another look at it, and he's the boss now.
Well, let me ask you about schools and budgets and funding, because we get a lot of money from the state, although Fairfax County gets less of its school budgets from the state than I think other parts of the county does. Is that money coming through? Was that cut in the budget proposals? Where does Fairfax stand on actually getting money for education?
There's a difference between the House and the Senate in what kind of funding K through 12 gets. And as you note, Fairfax, along with other jurisdictions in Northern Virginia, gets proportionally less because of the way the composite index, the funding formula is set up, which disadvantages our schools. Now, one thing that we did, which is very important, is that we were able to restore money for what's called the cost of competing, which compensates Northern Virginia school districts for the greater cost of living in this area and the competitive disadvantage that we're at as a result of that. So we were able to restore some of that money.
Okay, good. Well, then let me ask you, we've got about another minute to go, and I want to ask you, what effect, I mean, you mentioned a little bit about the effect of the new governor, at least on some of the education issues. What effect do you think the fact that Terry McAuliffe is our governor has had this year?
Oh, well, for one thing, it's put a new energy into Capitol Square. He is tremendously enthusiastic. He says that sleep is a waste of time.
Right. He'll sleep when I'm dead, I think is his
That's
quote.
right. That's right. And so it's really injected a new sense of energy and purpose into what we're doing down there. I'm very enthusiastic about him, and I think he's going to be a great governor.
Oh, well, that's terrific to hear because, gosh, the last couple were not so great. At least the last one who sort of disgraced us all. But all right, so what are you looking for next year? What are you going to do?
Well, for next year, among the things that I want to do is to look at making sure that Fairfax, Arlington, the Northern Virginia jurisdictions' interests are paid attention to. There was a shift in population that was recorded in the last census, and it takes several years for that to be affected in the actual legislation that's passed. You saw it in the transportation bill.
Right.
You can see it in education and in other kinds of functions of state government, and I'm looking forward to making sure that happens.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Delegate Brink, for coming and being on the show.
Well, thank you very much. Okay, good to see you.
Good to see you.